From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt. Our colleague Noel is on an adventure but will return soon.
They call me Ben. We are joined as always with our super producer, Alexis, codenamed Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It is time, once again, fellow conspiracy realists, for strange news. And Matt, I think our adventures with our weekly strange news segment are always a bit off the beaten path, but I am particularly interested in our stories today. These are like the epitome of strange news. I almost said that the only missing ingredient here is something paranormal, but as we'll see in our first story, there might be some paranormal stuff going on too. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Right as we were going to go in to record today, I was reading the news about the newest astronauts that have just been officially announced by NASA.
Ooh, I haven't seen that yet. Any major takeaways?
Yeah, they're going into space.
Okay. So it's like the human interest stories of all the people that are going up?
Yeah, it's the next astronaut class. So
got it.
This class specifically is targeting moon missions. There's no official word yet on whether they will also be working on space stations, whether in the ISS or trying to improve something in some other partnership. We can go ahead and congratulate these folks because they earned it. If we could do a brief laundry list, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. So congratulations to Nicole Ayers, Marcos Berrios, Christina Birch, Dennis Burnham, Luke Delaney, Andre Douglas, Jack Hathaway, Anil Menon, Christopher Williams, and Jessica Whitner. Also, a special shout out to Nicole Ayers, who has become an astronaut at the tender age of 32.
Amazing. Congratulations on getting to do some moon missions at some point in the future. Because, depending on what we find there, your missions may be a little more exciting than you expected initially.
That's right, Matt, because as you found recently, someone else is already exploring the moon, and they're not from the US. They're not even human. And we don't know what they're about to find.
Yeah. Should we drop the thing so people can look at it?
Oh, do it.
All right. Hey, this comes from CNET.com. China moon rover will investigate cube-shaped, quote, mystery object on lunar far side. What?
Space Odyssey. It's happening. Finally.
The subtitle is that a boulder or something else?
Else. In space, no one can hear you do your own audio effects. So, so yeah, you showed me this, and this completely was not on my radar, lunar or otherwise. Could you tell us a little bit about this operation itself, and like how long has this been going on? Were they planning to run into this thing, or did it just this is the less touristy side of the moon, correct?
Yeah. With the less touristy side. It's the dark side of the moon. No, well, it's just the far side of the moon is what we will call it. That's how it's been referred to in both CNET and by people giving updates from this particular mission. This is China's Chang'e 4 lunar lander mission, and the robot, the non-human entity that will be hanging out with whatever that mystery object is the U2, spelled YUTU-2 rover. And you can follow this on Twitter. That's the way I've been checking it out. There's a person named Andrew Jones over there on Twitter. It is, let me just make sure I get the handle correct here, at AJ_FI, I believe. And that's all uppercased. This person, Andrew Jones, has been giving updates. And this particular update came from him. There's an image that you can find on both that CNET article and on Andrew's Twitter page that appears to show something way out far in the distance, just on the horizon line, that looks kind of square. Let's say sort of square. And it looks like in the center, there's a shadow that appears to almost be, if you take your imagination there, to be like a doorway or, some kind of opening in the center.
Space trash. No, wait, space hot, right? Because they were saying, I saw one story describe it as a mystery hut, which is so cool. That's the kind of enigmatic adventure I think more of us could use in our lives.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Well, I guess we can read some more from this article, but I don't want to throw too much water on it initially. But it's very likely that that mystery object is nothing more than a boulder from an impact long, long ago on the moon, because there are so many of those and weird little boulder-looking things, rocks that are on the surface of the moon. But it's very reminiscent to me of the rumors around the Apollo 18 mission. This like secretive thing that was supposed to have happened where there were structures on the moon discovered by the Apollo 18 crew. And this is something we looked into a long time ago. And I believe we even may have covered, there was a movie that came out about this Apollo 18 mission.
Yes.
Right? I there's something inside my head that takes me back there.
It was like a mockumentary, I want to say, or something like that. Like it purported to be a documentary.
That was a different one.
That was a different one.
That was one about faking the moon landing, right? With the whole thing, or maybe it's all getting mixed up in my head, guys. But I know there's an Apollo 18 like documentary style fiction movie.
Oh, and there's a horror film. Maybe that's what we're thinking of from 2011.
That's the one. So there are all these rumors that, and it was a conspiracy theory. It has been pretty thoroughly debunked, and you can check that out if you wish. Do some searching around and go back and listen to one of our episodes on it. But I'm pretty sure that's been debunked. However, this is the closest thing I've seen to an actual image from the lunar surface that looks something like what was discovered in that fictional story.
Yes. And unfortunately, like so many other features on different planets or satellites, the images that are publicly available of this thing, whatever it may be, are still pretty, they're not high fidelity. Let's just put it that way. It's difficult to make out what exactly the thing is. You can see, you can definitely see it in the photographs that have been making the rounds on the news, but it's very small in these photographs. And again, to our earlier points about perspective and size, it's kind of tough to like really understand how big or small it might be as U22 draws closer, which means in English, Jade Rabbit.
Dose.
Yes, Jade Rabbit 2. Yes.
It's just very exciting. And who knows what it's going to be? Who knows if we'll even find out the truth of what it discovers? But we do know that U22 has discovered something else pretty interesting. I believe it was several years ago, 2019. It found this substance that was described as gel-like, or at least what it thought was a gel-like substance that was inside a crater. And at least according to the official story, it was actually just rock. Just a glassy looking rock.
Rock juice? Oh, okay. Okay. So something that maybe resembled like obsidian or whatever. It's kind of shiny and it can be misinterpreted. Okay. And I'm glad you brought that point up because it's important to establish that in the Lunar rover game, U22 is not new. It's been on the lunar surface since January of 2019?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they've managed not to lose mobility, not to lose power, not to fall prey to moon men, if that's a thing that people worry about. So already I think it's an enormous accomplishment, and everybody involved should be pretty proud, especially if they discover an actual mystery hut. Oh man. Oh, this stuff makes me so excited. I want to believe, you know what I mean? even if it's a rock, it could be a really interesting rock, right?
Yeah, it could. Yeah. Or it could be, a crashed vessel of some sort. Oh man. Or one of these missions, one of these early missions that set up a base on Mars. Come on, guys. It could be any of those things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, it could be some like post World War II secret underground German thing, or it could be part of a Russian space program, or it could be a UFO. Oh, wait, you know what? I would be very disappointed if this happened, though I would be impressed. What if U-22 rolls up to this mystery thing and there's like a hologram of Elon Musk who walks out just... I'm clapping slowly, folks. It's like the most sarcastic thing you can do. Actually, some of my friends banned me from doing that for a year because I was overusing it. You remember that?
I was there. I wonder if it would be even cooler if it was a creature that is vaguely reminiscent of Elon Musk. It looks very similar, but not quite Elon Musk.
Some sort of muskoid.
Yeah. Well, but I'm replaying Mass Effect again because it was on sale to buy the whole, I think the first 3 original series of Mass Effect, the video game, and started a new character and playing through it again. And one of the first missions you encounter in that fictional video game is you find this beacon, which is a remnant of an ancient, like let's say the first perhaps intelligent species that roamed the galaxy or whatever. And this kind of thing makes my mind go there, where if you wanted to study the emerging intelligent species on Earth, and there's already this natural satellite that goes around the planet, that orbits it, if you could place something on the far side of that satellite that is a beacon of some sort for a relay for information, right? You could perhaps monitor pretty easily without them knowing until they are able to actually explore that satellite. So you have to think in timescales here, as in like thousands and thousands of years ago, or maybe even tens of thousands, if not millions of years ago, it was placed. If that was something on the moon, right? But I'm just, this is where my mind is going when I think about something like that. It would be a pretty effective way for a long period of time to transfer information. You just need to locate that large satellite.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, I think. And you could, one of the best parts about that point is the enormous scale of time that we're talking about. Mass Effect, other works of science fiction have spent a lot of time thinking about this because it is something that is genuinely beyond human comprehension. I mean, 10 years is a long time to the average human being, but that's maybe a nanosecond in galactic time, right? And you have to wonder if there were something, this is entirely speculative, this is a thought experiment, but if there were something, some entity or civilization or group that was, or some organism, some synthetic mind that was capable of building something like this, then
Reapers. Go ahead.
Then what would their aims be? What would their goals be? Their idea of time would probably differ from the human idea of time. And I think about that a lot as well, because the lunar surface is actually a not bad place to build things. The lunar subsurface is even better, right? So how cool would it be if they get up to this and it is like a rough, stone hewn hut, and then the hut has like some symbols on it, and they're basic mathematical equations. And if you do it in the right order, then a door slowly creaks open. This is when you get into Lovecraft territory, right? Would you go down the stairs?
Oh, I'd get on the lift. Yeah, I'd go down the stairs too, for sure. Yeah, because we talked before about the somewhat hollow nature of parts of the moon. that it can ring. And we tested that theory by launching a satellite and crashing it into the thing. It just makes you wonder what kind of, like, if you dug in just a little bit, what could you discover down there? Ooh, maybe, well, actually, no, we know. That's why the moon is a hot commodity right now. That's why humans are back on the moon, because we're going to mine the out of that thing.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you did a self-edit there. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I did. Well, we had somebody write in recently and they said the censor beeps are too loud. And please do not censor beep as loudly as you have been.
Well, let's also, this is a relatively small thing. It's unrelated, but let's also point out, Matt, I know we've talked about it off air, but I don't know if we've ever explained to folks why we do the beep. Folks, you may have heard Matt or Noel or even yours dubiously, on other podcasts where we curse up a storm freely. I am of the mind that I'm a fan of the studies that indicate use of so-called blue language can, be poetic in its sense. But the honest truth is, we just think the beeps are funny. It's the Hitchcockian approach to censorship. The monster you can't hear is much worse than what the people are actually saying. And I love it. And also shout out to codename Doc Holliday, who just hit us in all caps on the group chat. What'd she say, Matt?
Censorship should be uncomfortable.
Yeah, there we go. I 100% agree. But yes, we know they're allowed, and we do have some sort of rationale behind beeping. Even if it's a childish reasoning, it's still enjoyable, because I always love it. I don't think anybody ever hears a beep and says, I wonder what they said. What came after mother, but before
children. I imagine that there are some younger folks listening to this, and I don't want to be the one. I don't want us to be the ones who introduce them to any 4-letter or however many letter words that maybe the old parents don't wish them to learn.
Well, once again, my friend, I want to thank you, because your conscientious nature is classing up the place. As always, what should we do with this information? I think we're all going to keep an eye on it. Do we know how far away the satellite is, how long it might take to get there? What would you leave our fellow conspiracy realist with this story?
For this one, we just have to wait, because the rover doesn't move that quickly, and it has to navigate around the large craters that are in its way between where it currently is today, as we record this on December 6th, and where it's headed out towards that distant mystery thing. So it may be days, weeks. I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. But I would, again, recommend that Twitter account just to keep getting updates, or just continue to follow the Chang E4 mission or U-22 rover's mission in other ways, wherever you get that information. All right, and with that, we are going to take a break to hear a word from a sponsor, but we will be right back with more strange news.
And we have returned. Let's continue with our exploration of mysterious structures. Now, folks, as you know, we all traveled pretty regularly leading up to the pandemic, and travel is picking up again across the globe, as well as domestically. Kind of.
As Omicron decides what it's going to do and whether or not it's going to be really serious.
I love that we're calling it Omicron, though, because it sounds like a transformer. Is that ridiculous?
No.
When I hear the news about Omicron, who I think is an actual transformer, when I hear the news about like Omicron has been spotted in all these different countries or whatever, I keep imagining this Decepticon just like rolling in.
Omicron, transform and roll out.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff in the air, literally, when it comes to travel. But one thing that we've talked about a lot in the past is the black box, which is the street name for an onboard flight recorder flight recording device. These things are the first non-human component that rescuers look for in any kind of plane crash. They contain all the data you would imagine, the telemetry data. They contain information about the function of the craft, and they are a tremendous help to investigators who are trying to figure out what exactly happened. They're also not actually black in color. And I think we talked about this a little bit every time we look into a mysterious plane crash. In fact, they're actually painted bright orange, because if you painted something, just matte black and it crashed in the ocean at night, why make it more difficult to find, right? So these things are bright. They're supposed to be visible. They're a vital piece of every aircraft. And we have just learned that soon planet Earth is going to have its own black box, its own great flight recorder. And it's kind of inspiring, but it's also kind of depressing. Folks, if you're somewhere where you have access to an internet connection, or you're on your phone or something, first, as always, thank you for listening. Secondly, go to earthsblackbox.com. That's Earth with an S, blackbox.com, all one word. Just going to go ahead and read the welcome page for everybody.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Unless we dramatically transform our way of life, climate change and other man-made perils will cause our civilization to crash. Earth's black box will record every step we take toward this catastrophe. Hundreds of data sets, measurements, and interactions relating to the health of our planet will be continuously collected and safely stored for future generations. The purpose of this device is to provide an unbiased account of the events that lead to the demise of the planet, hold accountability for future generations, and inspire urgent action. How the story ends is completely up to us. Only one thing is certain: your actions, inactions, and interactions are now being recorded. Everything's fine.
Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Are you watching me, Earth's Black Box? This is really disturbing, and in a lot of ways, Ben, this connects up with our previous story to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, this thing looks like an obelisk of some sort on its side. Really, that's the way I'm seeing it, Ben. And it, if this thing actually gets completed, which I think it's going to be sometime next year, maybe?
Yeah. I believe that they'll start breaking ground on it in 2022. And once they start, it shouldn't be too difficult to construct it. They've spent a lot of time figuring out how to build it in a sustainable way. And you're right, it does have a lot in common. It's not super huge. It sounds pretty big when you hear the size, but considering what it's supposed to do, it's actually packing a lot for its punch. It's 30 feet by 13 feet long, just about. And if you look at it, just like you said, Matt, it looks as though it is featureless. It looks as though, you don't see windows, you don't see logos. It looks like a very weird pillar that has just been kind of awkwardly placed on this hill in Tasmania.
Well, it's got a geometric shape that doesn't appear to be natural in its surroundings, and it appears to be made out of a substance that doesn't match its surroundings. So it's specifically made to be an anomaly if, someone in the future comes upon it, right?
Yes.
Whether by land, by air, or by space.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, big shout out to our fellow conspiracy realist over in Australia, Patrice. Patrice had hipped me to this story. Patrice is also the creator of a podcast you can check out on YouTube now called A is for Aliens. So give it a listen. Being in Australia, it makes sense that people in that part of the world might be a little more aware of this project in Tasmania. I think you've nailed it, Matt. It is supposed to be uncanny. It's supposed to stand out. And one of the things, actually, that has been a matter of great debate with the team behind the project is how to ensure longevity and sustainability, but even more of a pickle, how to make it so that other later civilizations or entities can figure out how to open the thing and use it and decipher what it's collecting.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of like all the work scientists put into figuring out how to establish the future living things, that nuclear waste sites were not the place you should hang out. And they did all kinds of crazy ideas, Matt. They were like glowing cats, maybe phosphorescent cats. Big stone monoliths with sort of like, abandon all hope, ye who enter here vibes on them. In this case, and they're pretty upfront about this, to their credit, they're still trying to figure out how they would manage to convey this explanation. The problem is you have to think of symbols that are so fundamental that they would still be understandable in some way by like future human or non-human entities. And then, the other approach would be math, just like you and I were describing with the mystery hut, which I'm still going to call it until it's proven otherwise, mystery hut on the moon, and in great works of science fiction like Anathema, math play, like the ability of a living thing to understand the concept of math is, I don't want to spoil the story too much, but that's a big piece of communication. And we see that with things that human beings have sent into deep space, because it's the most universal thing this species is aware of at this time. I don't know, man. It feels important. It reminds me of the Doomsday Seed Vault. You remember that? Yeah.
That's exactly where my mind is going. That I don't remember where that is. It's in Scandinavia somewhere. Up in the mountains, in the frigid cold.
It is in sunny Santa Monica, California. No, it is in it's in Svalbard, Norway, which also just on a side note here, if you want to emigrate to Europe and you are having a hard time navigating all the bureaucratic hurdles, you can move to Svalbard. They'll let you in. Seriously, no fooling. You can just move to Svalbard. It's not the most hospitable climate.
Hence the Doomsday Vault, I guess.
It is home to something called a Doomsday Vault. So yeah.
The reason why I'm thinking about it is just going back to the moon thing, the beacon with the fictional Mass Effect story. If, some intelligent race comes to the Earth and finds that Doomsday Vault in Norway, and then you go all the way across the planet to the other hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, and you find this thing jutting out of the ground, you're going to put those things together as though these are some of the most important ancient relics from this civilization and species that once lived on this charred planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
exactly.
That's
like,
where my brain is going right now.
It's kind of sad, right? Because it's sort of like imagine you're walking into a burned down house and you find a children's book, and the children's book is a bunch of drawings of the family, right? You're learning about the house, but I know, I see that face, but not in a way that will unburn the house. The idea here is to document what is going on in the world now, not just metrics, the kind of stuff a flight recorder would record, but evidence of climate change, list of species going extinct, levels of pollution, impacts on health. And they're doing this. This thing is connected to the internet. It's solar powered. It has backup batteries. It's specifically in Tasmania because that place is extraordinarily geologically sound. So it's much more likely to be around for a while. They're also collecting data into the past. So they're aggregating information about, hey, what were the ocean levels in 1970 or something? You know what I mean? And I'm not sure how far back it will stretch, but the idea is to arm those who come after humans with information about what went wrong, how, what happened, to maybe shed some light on the mystery. I don't think it's taking the same tact as the Georgia Guidestones, which, I guess we should do a quick and dirty explanation of the Georgia Guidestones. We actually drove up and saw them.
Yeah, we did. We made a whole video documentary on it based on our colleague Noel Brown's documentary that he created in school. A list of precepts that are etched into stone out in the middle of a field on a farm, and you can drive there and you can read these precepts about how humans need to be kept as a species to under 500 million in total, and then basically how to do that, how to live if we had a population that size.
Right. It describes a kind of new set of commandments that can be scary for some people, but even for the most open-minded person, it's somewhat apocalyptic and impractical, because 500 million people is not everybody.
Yeah, but the rest of the stuff, makes sense to me. Basically, it whittles down to don't be a jerk and make room for nature. That's what I have in my head.
Yeah, and it's a bunch of different languages. It is cool. It's worth the trip if you are near the area. If you just have to drive a couple hours out, do check it out. Tell them we sent you. This black box is meant to be it's not really meant to be an art project. It's meant to stand the test of time. It's a collaboration between Clemenger BBDO, a creative agency called the Glue Society, and researchers at the University of Tasmania. You can imagine how some people are a little bit dismissive of this, and they're saying, hey, this is just a PR stunt. But in response to that, I would just pull up the meme of the little kid saying, why not both, or whatever, if you remember that meme. Because I think something can get PR attention, but then can also provide serious scientific work of value. So I think it's smart to do it. I think it would be cooler if there were more things like this around the world. I want to live near one of these things, Of course, if it were in a populated area, it would only be a matter of time before someone drew like a dong, or they wrote, Jimmy Streets was here or something. I don't know who Jimmy Streets is, but
yeah, Jimmy Streets was there for sure.
Jimmy Streets was there. That's what his thing is. But we want to know what you think about this kind of project. Is it worthwhile? If not, why? And perhaps most importantly, what advice or insight would you give to the team over there at the University of Tasmania to help them solve the biggest problem right now, which is figuring out how people or things thousands and thousands of years from now would be able to open this box and, even more importantly, understand what they found inside. We can't wait to hear your ideas. 1-833-STDWYTK. Again, thanks to Patrice in Australia. You can also email us directly, conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com. We're going to pause for a word from our sponsor. We're going to return with a story that is much less thought experimenty and much more dangerous. So stay tuned.
All right, we've returned, and we're going to take a look at one isolated incident that is currently affecting people as we record this again on Monday, December 6th. And this is the kind of thing where if there are enough occurrences like this over a span of enough time and on a big enough scale, we're led down to the need for Earth's black box that we just talked about.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, we're going to begin on Tuesday, November 30th, with a story coming out of NavyTimes.com. The headline is, despite reports of rashes, sickness after fuel leak, Hawaii base water is safe, Navy says. I'm going to read directly from this a bit. Although some residents aboard Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, which is in Hawaii, have complained of headaches, stomach aches, skin rashes, and pet illnesses from water that smells like gasoline, Navy officials say the water is safe to drink. Now, the Hawaii Department of Health and Navy tested the water and they found no measurable quantities of fuel. And you can actually go to facebook.com and you can look up this Facebook post, which was made on the 29th of November. So I'm going to read directly from this Facebook post. The Navy is investigating reports of a chemical smell in drinking water at several homes and some of the military housing areas for this base. There is no immediate indication that the water is not safe. The Navy continues to investigate reports and is testing the water. Navy engineers visited several homes of families who reported the smell and also immediately went to Navy's drinking water wells to investigate. There was no smell or sign of fuel or chemicals in the water at the Navy's water wells and water tanks. Specialists took samples of water at several locations for testing. They're saying they continue to monitor and investigate and will update residents. Meanwhile, the residents of this base and the surrounding areas are all saying, hey, our water smells like petroleum fuel. It smells like it so much, it's crazy, and we're all getting sick. This is happening on November 30th, okay? This is all like real-time events at that moment. And the Navy essentially came through and said, hey, we tested the water, we checked it out. Officially, the water's fine. Go about your business. You're good to go. However, if you jump back to the article from Navy Times, they're saying that the Red Hill facility, which holds 20 underground fuel storage tanks that date all the way back to World War II, it sits above an aquifer, which supplies water to Oahu, the island there, Oahu in Hawaii. And in the past, it's been the source of multiple leaks. So it is a known quantity that this Navy fuel storage system is above the aquifer that is sending people water. And it's smelling like fuel. And all the residents seem to be going, here's this piece. Oh, wait, this puzzle fits. Right. But the Navy itself, at least as of November 30th, we're saying, no, there's nothing to see here. Ben, I'm going to jump to the next story, but let's talk about this first as this is happening.
Yeah, this is the thing. So, Matt, as you know, I have traveled widely in my time or whatever, and I have been to some really sketchy places. I've been to some really nice places. Honolulu itself, Hawaii itself, is in many ways a study in contradiction, right? Culturally, it is very different from what you would consider mainland U.S. probably, in that it is a mix of so many distinct cultures, and the nation itself, the Kingdom of Hawaii, which it was until the 1950s. Shout out to codename Doc Holliday's excellent Stuff They Don't Want You to Know episode on Hawaii. Sure. Check that out. The area of Honolulu itself, the capital city, it has a very, very, very big military presence. Because if you look at Hawaii on a map, you'll see just how far away it is from the rest of the United States. And its position is so strategic. So there's definitely going to be a huge military presence on the archipelago for the foreseeable future, and that's going to remain incredibly controversial. There's a lot of resistance from the local population to having the U.S. Navy there. I mean, sure, you can make the argument that it provides a ton of jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It provides security. And from the U.S. perspective, it makes absolute sense to have the infrastructure they have in that area. However, it sounds like this is something that's been a long time coming that came to a head. The effects of tainted drinking water, just like you can see with lead poisoning, just like you can see with Flint, Michigan, the effects of this stuff aggregate over time. Yeah. So I'm thinking, and I bet you and I are on the same page, because you alluded to it as well. I'm thinking maybe something reached a tipping point, and there was always some kind of concern about this.
Oh yeah, there has been, and it's specifically this thing called the Red Hill facility is what it's referred to as, and it's the fuel tanks that are sitting above the aquifer, because having that infrastructure from the U.S. military is or can possibly have a major effect on way more people than just those who are employed by the military on those bases and in the surrounding areas, because that aquifer sends water to people across that island, the island of Oahu. And we're not talking about a few, we're talking about hundreds of thousands. So let's look at the Red Hills kind of track record, the fuel tank. In 2014, more than 24,000 gallons of fuel leaked. Okay. Not great. On May 6th, which is just earlier this year, a little over 1,600 gallons of jet fuel were spilled from a pipeline at the facility. According to the Navy, all but 38 gallons were recovered in that incident. But in November, on the 20th and the 21st, 14,000 gallons of fuel and water spilled from a drain line near the Red Hill facility. And that's from a statement by the military on November 22nd. So residents there are aware that there was a fuel spill, and they're aware that there appears to be fuel in their water. And again, it's the residents putting the pieces together before the officials come forward with a statement to say, hey, don't drink that water. It's contaminated.
Yeah,
right?
They're like, wow, thanks. Thanks for cluing us in. We had no idea.
Well, yeah. And the official statement that came out at that time was something pretty innocuous. Like, we recommend that, residents in these areas do not use the water for bathing or ingesting or, general things you would use water for. Just maybe don't do that. We'd recommend it for now. So again, this is on Tuesday, November 30th, all of that. Then on Friday, December 3rd, the Friday before we're recording this, the Navy comes out and admits, yes, Pearl Harbor well is contaminated with petroleum. And this comes from military.com. And you can actually, again, go back to Facebook if you like, and you can watch the little press conference, essentially, where they made this announcement to everybody, because the families were rightly freaking out. Imagine that. You're unaware if you can use your water or not, but it's really the only source of water you've got. Let's say you've got a child, maybe a child that's using baby formula. You're going to mix, that baby formula with the water coming out of the tap because that's what you have available. You should see the Facebook comments on that page of families just trying to get an answer of whether or not the water is okay for days and days and days. And you may think Tuesday to Friday, that isn't that long of a time span. But if you're imagining all the things you use water for in your daily life, that's forever, especially if there's no answers and you're not getting water provided to you in some other way, as it is supposed to be.
Yeah. And to be clear, Hawaii gets the majority of its water from groundwater.
Yes.
And if we could talk a little bit about Red Hill, it's an old thing. It was built back in the 40s, I think. So this has been around for decades and decades, which means that it needs a lot of maintenance and a lot of overhauling. And that gets dangerous because the question becomes something like, this glass is broken. How do I fix this broken glass without taking out, the beverage in it? How do I fix this gas tank without losing any gas? It's tough. And these things are huge. We're talking like 100 feet in diameter, 250 feet deep or tall. I don't know, man. I feel like, and I don't mean to sound, conspiratorial or whatever, but I feel like this is one of those problems that can get kicked down the road pretty often until it reaches a point like this, because it's no secret. The U.S. has a huge infrastructure problem.
If only we could get a giant bill passed for trillions of dollars.
You know what? I don't know what the answer is. Do I know how much of that money that would get approved would actually end up going to the work that needs to be done? I don't know. And there are a lot of people like Army Corps engineers and so on, at least in the mainland side, who have been rightly pointing out this problem. And there's been no shortage of people pointing this problem out in Hawaii as well. I know that there was a Senate bill, Senate Bill 1259, with the great title, Relating to Underground Storage Tanks, that was going to require the DOH Department of Health to start having better regulations, to have underground storage tanks and tank systems conform to federal regulations, which apparently they didn't beforehand, and to get some additional requirements, safety requirements, maintenance stuff, regulatory stuff. That bill was introduced in 2017, and then eventually it got tabled, which means it didn't go anywhere.
Well, yeah. In this case, we're talking about jet fuel and diesel storage that's underground, not very far above an aquifer. Like, that to me is the problem. You're gonna store volatile hydrocarbons just above the place where all the clean water is. I mean, it just seems like a bad idea. And I know I get what you're saying, Ben, and I agree with you on many of those points. In this case, if you look to that article that I was mentioning from Friday, December 3rd, when they finally come out and admit this stuff is happening, they say and disclose that on Sunday, 5 days prior to their disclosure here, they had tested water at the site. And that, quote, one test was taken on Sunday night shortly after this incident was identified to the Navy, and that test identified trace amounts of very volatile hydrocarbons that would normally be associated with JP5, which is jet fuel, or diesel fuel. So on Sunday, they found trace amounts, right? Mm-hmm. Which I suppose if you're testing there at the source where the leak occurred and you're only finding trace amounts, maybe you're not that worried. But when you remember that, again, it's just above, it's just above the aquifer. So anything that did spill out that isn't immediately in that area now has gone probably down, out and down. Which is why you need, when something like that occurs, it just means that no matter what you are, if you're a private corporation, if you're a giant, arm of the U.S. military, you need to alert people who may be affected, by your actions. And even if it's not your actions, maybe it's an accident that occurred because of aging infrastructure. You still got to be able to put that word out really quickly and help people who need that information.
Yeah, man. Agreed. I mean, look, I don't think either of us are saying someone in the U.S. military is sitting around steepling their fingers, Monty Burns style, and saying, yes, let it leak just a little.
No, but I'm not saying that at all.
Right. I don't think we are.
No, what I mean is, like, this is one example of the kind of thing that happens pretty frequently. And I would take it back to Flint, Michigan. I'd take it back to other stories that we've covered like this, where some small problem that would appears to be a small problem in the beginning turns out to be a way bigger issue. And nobody wants to admit that it's happening, or even come out and officially say it's happening until you get all the information. But it just stinks, because maybe that's the right thing to do from an organizational strategic perspective. But in the end, there are consequences to real people who live in an affected area.
Yeah. And this is an especially extreme case of that because it's not occurring in a vacuum. Uncle Sam actually has a terrible history with pollution in and around Hawaii. I believe they had dumped tens of thousands of bombs in the ocean off Oahu from 44 all the way to 1978. Those bombs, a lot of them are still down there. Some of them are filled with crazy damaging stuff. Hydrogen cyanide, mustard bombs, things like that, just sort of into the ocean. It was not a good splash noise, folks, but we're working live. You can actually learn more about this in a book that came out just this year, I believe, called Poisoning the Pacific, the U.S. Military's Secret Dumping of Plutonium, Chemical Weapons, and Agent Orange. So as unfortunate as it is to point it out, the people of Hawaii are probably not especially surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure. If you look, and this is not all that's happening right now, I think it was Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday on CNN. They posted a story. Honolulu shut down its largest water source in Oahu due to reported contamination of Navy well near Pearl Harbor. It's called the Halawa Shaft. I think that's how you would say that. It's Oahu's largest water source that they had to shut down while the contamination is being corrected. let's say. So you can learn all about that if you head over there. Again, they go deeper into some of the fuel leaks that have come out of that particular place. Just want everybody to get as much information as they can. And also shout out to anybody in Hawaii at all right now, because we're also reading about some of the emergency shelters that have been opened up on Oahu and Maui because of this Kona low storm that's coming through. So probably over by the time you're hearing this, but maybe psychically in some way, you know that we're thinking about you right now. I don't know how that works. We are, though.
Yeah, we are very much so. And if you are listening to this in Hawaii, whether in Honolulu or somewhere else in the state, we would love to hear your perspective on this. What do people on the ground think is going to come of this? Better regulations, or just something that flashes in the news cycle and then gets suppressed? Also, if you are the person, I will not name, who drank too much with me at that bar, that weird bar, well, shout out to you. And thanks for tuning in. See, I really do have a show. All right. But my name isn't Chris. That was my bad.
Oh, what?
Oh, man. Yeah. But it's true, Matt. And this is an important story because these things happen around the world in ways that don't often get as much attention as they should. You know what I mean? The horrors of things like depleted uranium, the long-standing chemical effects of dump sites, or the terrible stuff that happens to people in parts of India who work in shipbreaking. For anyone who's not familiar with shipbreaking, it's exactly what it sounds like. When it's time to retire a ship, who breaks it apart into smaller pieces? But the world is full of dangerous pollution like this, and bringing awareness to it is important. Again, we'd love to hear from you. If you have lived in Hawaii, if you live there now, we want to hear your perspective of the people on the ground now. Like, what do they think is going to happen? Do they believe what the military is saying? Do they think it's only a matter of time before this happens again? Let us know what's on your mind. We try to be easy to find online.
Yes, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where we are Conspiracy Stuff. You can also find us on Instagram, where we are Conspiracy Stuff Show. If you could take a moment, please, right now, just a moment, stop doing the dishes. That's usually how I'm listening to podcasts, or doing laundry, or going for a run, or whatever you're doing. And just head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this, and please give us a quick review. It can be literally a run-on sentence, a full sentence. You could even do 3 if you're feeling nuts.
A code? It could be, I don't know if they let you do emoji, but yeah, as Matt's saying, a shout out to our super producers, Mission Control, or codenamed Doc. We'd love to hear from you, and those reviews do matter. They do help us. Yeah,
they really do help our show. So we'd really appreciate it if you liked this episode or the show in general. If you do not like social media, there's another way you can contact us.
Yes, that's correct. You can right now. Should you be the possessor of a telephonic device, give us a call. From your mouth to our ears. All you have to do is dial, say it with me, 1-833-STDWYTK. You'll get a message ensuring you that you're in the right place. You'll have 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes are your own. Go nuts. Get weird with it. Give yourself a nickname. Tell us what's on your mind. Let us know if we can use your name and or message on the air. And most importantly, do not edit yourself. I mean, you can put in a beep over a curse word if you think it's funny. I assure you, I think it's funny. But if you have a story that's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, don't feel like you have to keep calling back. Just send us an email. Write the whole thing out. Give us those links. Give us those pictures. We read every single email we get. All you have to do is drop us a line where we are.
Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com. Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.